What's up, guys? Edrone here, and guess what? We have yet another firmware update for the DJI Mavic Air. Stay tuned. So if you logged on to your DJI Mavic Air app in the last couple days, you may have found that there is a new firmware update available for your DJI Mavic Air and for your DJI Mavic Air controller. This firmware was released March 21st, 2018, and it addresses a decent amount of issues. So it increases the descent speed to 3 meters per second when flying forward. There's added support for operating at 5.8 gigahertz in Thailand. Also fixed an issue with the gimbal, where the gimbal would drift when the aircraft's heading changes, and I have noticed that myself. So that actually happened to me in my range flight. Check that video out. Also fixed an issue where the aircraft would shake when using the active track. Added message if failure to take panoramas or asteroid quickshot occurs. Requires DJI 4.2. Fixed an issue where the craft would not link with the controller. Fixed an issue where the intelligent flight battery firmware would not update. Fixed an issue of the video lag when the aircraft's heading changes. Fixed an issue of ghosting in photos. Fixed an issue where the aircraft would fail to decelerate automatically when landing. So definitely want to do this firmware update, guys. I've seen a lot of I've not seen any negative reviews of this firmware update. Now I'm going to fast forward this whole firmware update, but just so you know, it took about, I'd say, 15 minutes total for the complete firmware update to go on the Mavic Air, and for the controller it updates both of them. Now all you have to do is just make sure you're on Wi-Fi. This is the easiest way to update your firmware on your Mavic Air and your Mavic Air controller, is just make sure that you have Wi-Fi signal and just turn the drone on, sync the controller to it, and you should have a pop-up right immediately when you're on the DJI Go 4 app for the firmware update. Just click on that and initiate the firmware update. And basically, you just leave it alone, let it do its thing, and just let it happen. But it does take, a decent amount of time, and it does drain the battery. So make sure you have a full battery. Okay, make sure you have a full battery on the controller, and you have a full battery on the craft itself. Now, once you're done, you're going to manually restart the craft yourself, and then you should get a little notification where it's going to check to see what firmware you have. And as long as you have the newest version, it will say newest version, and the box will disappear. Version checking, and latest version. Now the box will disappear. We are now in the DJI Go 4 app, and it does warn in the firmware update, it does warn that some of the settings are going to get changed back to default. So what we're going to do is go through the app and see what changes actually took place in the app. First thing we're going to look at is the camera. Looks like it stayed in manual mode. It wasn't in automatic, which I have my camera set to manual. So I'm just playing around with my shutter speed so we can at least see what's on the screen here. But in dark settings, you're going to really have to lower your shutter speed here. And you can see right here, we can actually see what's on the screen here. And just so you guys are aware, I am now selling t-shirts and coffee mugs and sweatshirts for my channel. The links for those will be in the description. But yeah, you can see now we're going to go ahead and check these settings here on the video settings. And we can see we are still in manual mode. My ISO is down to 100 where I left it. And the shutter speed, we'll lower that all the way to 30 so you can just barely see, because obviously we're in the house at night, so it's very dark. It's hard for the camera to pick it up. My custom setting is the same, so that didn't change. 0, -3, 0. My color is the same, decent alike. My video size stayed the same, 4K at 30. My white balance is the same, sunny, so it didn't change that. I'm glad it didn't change all these settings like it said it would. And you can raise the ISO when you're inside to kind of brighten it up. However, just keep in mind that it's going to make your picture quality very grainy if you go to record like this. But we're going to go ahead and raise the ISO so you can see what the picture looks like inside. But I will say that DJI did warn that there would be some changes on your app, especially to the drone itself. So you can see now it went back to 30 meters, return to home. I always set mine at 50 meters. I like to be about 150 feet when I return to home. So we'll change that back. And anytime you guys do a firmware update, before you go fly, always go back in the app, go through all your settings, and make sure you have all the settings to where you need them to be, because you never know what's going to change when you do a firmware update. You see I got a message also about my compass calibration that needs to be done. My unit stayed the same, imperial miles per hour. Let's check the visioning, sensing, and all that, all the obstacle avoidance. That's all turned on. Okay, I keep all that turned on. My buttons, my custom buttons are the same. That's good. My Wi-Fi is the same. I have that set on 2.4 gigahertz auto, so that's all the same. That didn't change. Okay, the low battery warning's at 30%, which I think I have that a little lower, but we'll leave it. And we're in follow mode on the gimbal. That didn't change. Now, look at this now. You can see that the cache to the SD card, that's off. And got this seat here. Beginner mode's turned off. Here's our RC signal lost. Check our IMU. Okay, looks like it's all good. We're going to do an IMU calibration anyway, just because after any firmware updates, I always recalibrate everything. We're going to do another compass calibration as well. Okay. Even though the compass says it's good, I still like to do a compass calibration and an IMU calibration after every single firmware update that I do. I just feel better about the craft when I do all that after the firmware update. So you can see I have weak GPS signal, obviously, because I'm in the house. We're going to go ahead and calibrate the compass now. I'm not around any metal. So we're going to rotate the craft counterclockwise. I'm just spinning around. Now, this is what confuses me. It says point the nose down and rotate it counterclockwise, but look at the picture. Clearly the nose is not down in that picture. That is confusing to me, but I just put the nose down because that's what it says. Alright, so the compass calibration is complete. Got that done now. And I keep getting these warnings, this little red box here. That's just about the low lighting and the sensors are not working for the obstacle avoidance. That's a very annoying. Then we have our manual exposure setting, just letting us know. Alright, let's go back in and take another look here and see. And let's look at our compass now. Okay, so our compass is in the green, which is good. Our numbers are lower than what they were, but that's okay. We'll recalibrate when we go outside. Now here we are in the IMU. Everything looks good, but we're going to recalibrate it anyway. Like I said, after every firmware update, I always recalibrate. So the IMU calibration is pretty easy. IMU, just push the button and follow the on-screen instructions. If you're not sure about it, I have a video on this. Check out my Mavic Air playlist. I do have a video on setting up your DJI Mavic Air for the first time. So basically, you're going to take all the props off to get started. Once you have all the props off, push the start button and follow the instructions exactly like it shows. So first, the craft's going to be basically sitting there facing the left. Wait till it tells you to change it, and then just follow the instructions. You'll have to do 6 different positions. Make sure you keep the craft perfectly still on a completely flat level surface. Normally I don't even use table because tables can wobble. So normally what I'll do is I'll just find a nice flat section of the floor, like we have hardwood floors. If you have like a nice linoleum floor or like a flat tile floor that doesn't have like gaps, that would be good, but it has to be completely flat and completely level. Do this correctly. And last, we put it upside down with the camera facing to the right. And calibration successful for the IMU. Now we can go back into the app and check just to make sure. Okay. Now what we do is we manually restart the craft after the IMU calibration. So completely restart the craft, turn it off, turn it back on, and then go in and check your IMU calibration and make sure everything looks correct. And you can see we all have green. Everything's looking right on all our accelerometers and gyros. Quick little tip, when doing firmware updates, always keep your controller close to your Mavic Air. This will make the firmware update a lot smoother and a lot less hiccups. Anytime you do a firmware update, you must update each individual battery. So we're going to change batteries out now because I have 2 batteries, and put in the new battery to be updated. We're going to power it on, and when we power it on, it will let us know that a firmware update is required for this battery. When you power it up on the DJI Go app, it will check the firmware and it will recognize that the battery has inconsistent firmware. You will need to slide to update. Now it's going to update that battery with the newest firmware and make sure everything is compatible. So let it do its thing, completely let it update itself. Good thing is the batteries don't take nowhere near as long as the craft. And you can see that the notification went away for the firmware, so we are complete. Also keep in mind, it's completely normal for the DJI Mavic Air or any other drone when doing firmware updates to reset itself a couple, even 3 or 4 times. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any questions about firmware updates on the DJI Mavic Air or any other questions, put them down in the comments. I'll make sure I try to get to them for you. And I hope this helps anybody out that's having trouble. Thanks so much, guys. Edrone out.